Now, we have a very special guest coming up for you. Our next guest is fighting for the mental health of girls. Parent educator and psychologist Steve Biddulph tackles the subject in his latest book, 10 Things That Girls Need Most.
It's a fabulous book. I've spent the last couple of days going through it. Steve talks about the importance of role models and setting good examples at a very early age for young girls. He joins us now from Sydney. Steve, it's great to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I've read this with some personal interest. I'm a father of a young daughter who's on the cusp of becoming a teenager, so I've been looking forward to this chat for those couple of days as well. Firstly, I want to ask you, generally, lots of parents watching this morning, how is raising girls different in a broad sense than raising boys?
Yes, Michael, well, it used to be boys that we were worried about, and girls were going fine. 15, 20 years ago, girls were flying along. But in the last decade, the mental health of girls has plummeted because they have different risk factors to boys. And in particular, what we're seeing is evidence of that girls are more sensitive to the social world around them on the whole, and more aware of the pressures that come at them. And so it's their anxiety that has become our greatest concern. And I think everyone with a girl over about the age of 8 is noticing this. And anxiety then drives the other things like eating disorders. Self-harm is at epidemic proportions now, and risky drinking, risky sexual behaviour. And so the anxiety is the core of it. But the thing that the big secret about this is that it's the kids are not the problem. It's us, the adults, who are passing on these stresses, and we're the ones who are frantic, and our daughters seem to pick that up more than our boys do, and so it affects them more deeply.
You make a very good point there, and you devote some time in your book to writing about this. Most of us are very much time poor. We've also got lots of responsibilities with kids at school, and also lots of after-school activities, struggling to spend some quality time with children. So what practical advice have you got for parents to, I suppose, slow down and offer some quality time to their daughters in particular?
Yes. What we do in the book 10 Things Girls Need Most is we look at even though when the big problems occur with girls are mostly around about the age of 14, the causes of those are usually much earlier. For instance, the mental health foundations for children are in the first 2 years, and so having mum and dad who are reasonably peaceful so that she has the experience of being around people who are calm and kind and have all the time in the world. And so we have to look after young mums and make sure that young parents are not worried about mortgages and are able to put their careers a little bit on the back burner and just be there for that baby, because she needs to feel it in her bones that she's loved and cherished and people are settled for her. Often our job as parents is to be less anxious than our children. And when in the primary years, when they come home, they often come home, particularly girls, with lots of friendship angst. Yep. And they want to tell us about that. But if they pick up that we're too busy, then they'll just store away those things. And after a time, they'll have a whole backlog of stuff that's been going on in their life that they've got nobody to talk to about.
Yeah. Steve, you mentioned primary school years. You raise a very important point there. We as a family have discovered this as well, and it's been picked up by our viewer Debbie, who has just written in on our Facebook page. She says she wasn't prepared for these so-called girl issues starting in primary school for her daughter. She was fully expecting things like body image, anxiety issues not to happen until high school. Again, I speak from personal experience. Why are so many families, so many parents, and importantly, so many girls going through this at an increasingly younger age?
Well, one of the things I think we've done wrongly is we've allowed childhood to be invaded, and so television and the internet have come sort of blasting in on girls, and so they're surrounded with this idea that you have to look pretty and you have to look hot, you have to be popular, and for them that's not a happy thing. It's just something that they feel they've got to do to survive. And so a couple of things, I think, whenever parents all through history, we've always had to drive off the hyenas, we've always had to wield a spear for our kids. And today that means fencing out the really toxic influences of too much internet, too much television in the home. And so that they have times to feel peaceful and settled and to dream and not be pressured, to have more time in nature. the other thing is that adult women have disappeared from the lives of girls. And so the biggest response on my Facebook community, I have a community of 100,000 parents, is that aunties are really, really important for daughters. When you can't talk to mum, particularly at that age about 12, when the one thing a 12-year-old girl knows is she doesn't want to turn out like her mum, and it's very sad. It's only a couple of months, but it's a very sad time. But if they can talk to aunties, and aunties are often a bit more gritty and down to earth, they're less embarrassing to talk to. And so we're encouraging everyone who's got nieces, and the same with dads who have nephews, really get into their lives and have them over to your house a lot, take them out for meals, talk to them about the big questions. What are you on about in life? What's important to you? And how's it going with boys and the things that they might want to talk about to somebody who's a little bit more one step removed.
Yeah, that's great advice. And of course, these girls have grown up with their aunt, so they're not exactly strangers, so they can confide in them much more than perhaps outsiders. And finally, I want to ask you, speaking of role models, about the importance of dads. How important are we in the successful, the happy upbringing of girls, Steve?
Yes. Now, for 9 out of 10 girls, it's going to be the opposite sex that they're interested in as they grow up. And so dad is their first opposite sex example. And so a dad who treats a daughter as intelligent and interesting, when he takes her out on Saturday morning to buy a hot glue gun, he doesn't just go home straight away. They stop off and have a hot chocolate and have a talk. That girl experiences that she's interesting and worthwhile, and it sets the bar for how she'll expect men to treat her and boys to treat her. Now, boys are very ugly in the way they treat girls now. Pornography has miseducated them, and so she needs to be really clear that she'll be respected and won't put up with that. And dads are the answer there. So even when you're playing, with mucking about with your little 2-year-old, you're already giving her that feeling that she's a worthwhile, strong, wild little girl.
Fabulous advice, Steve. As I said, I'm going to keep it and reread the book. I think it's terrific. Thank you very much for joining us from Sydney.
Thank you.